As Wings always does at our presentations, we want to acknowledge that we are on the unceded shared traditional territory of the Kootenay and Secwepemc First Nations and their local bands of the Kiskanook and Shuswap, and the chosen home of the Columbia Valley. Someone that everyone has their own stories about. Larry Halverson has been a Valley resident for ages, and not only that, but he's left his mark right across the region, the province, the country, and internationally. And this year, the Canadian Museum of Nature has recognized Larry for a Lifetime Achievement Award because of his decades of inspiring people not only to protect nature, but also to understand nature. As they said in their press release, that not only including his nearly 40 years of working with Parks Canada, but Larry has been instrumental in so many different organizations, engaging people and creating initiatives to help protect nature. He was a co-founder of the Wings Over the Rockies Festival that celebrated its 25th festival this year. And then he has inspired many people and led to tremendous fundraising opportunities with his attitude and his infectious humor. The award will be presented in Ottawa on November 14th, but here's an opportunity for our community to recognize Larry for what he's contributed to the area. Now, all of us have stories related to Larry and know some of his story, but this is just a partial list of all the activities that Larry has been involved with. Many of these, he's either been founder, a regional coordinator. Some of the highlights, he was the author of or co-author of the first Columbia Valley Bird Checklist. He received an award for the Canadian Intermountain Joint Venture, which is a bird preservation initiative. He's been a scientist in the classroom throughout the West and East Kootenays. So many different initiatives that he's been involved with. And he's done this with his signature humor and creativity. When we took this photo, we couldn't get Larry to stand still. He was just buzzing with so many different things. He needed to be in about 6 different places at once. But when I refer to Larry as a wingnut, it's in part because he has this amazing creativity where he just needs to connect with audiences regardless of who they represent. A case in point, back in, this would be 1996, the Brian Lyle, who was visitor services manager up at Panorama Resort, asked Larry, can you help me? I've got this group of motorcycle aficionados that are coming out, and I need a presentation. They want a presentation about the natural history of the valley. Can you give them something? And Larry says, well, I don't know anything about Harley Davidsons. And then the light goes on. And according to legend, Larry said, well, we have Harleys in the valley. And he gave them a presentation about harlequin ducks. A bird of fast water that spends part of the time in the mountains, part on the coast. And it was so successful and perceived so well that Brian and Larry thought, well, if we can do this to this group and get them excited, we can do it to any group in the world. And they came up with the idea of the Wings Over the Rockies Bird Festival at that point. Now, we'll be sharing a number of stories, and I know there's a 3-ring binder back there that people have done some writing of some of their stories and shared that with Larry, but of all the different stories I could tell with Larry, I thought I would go way, way back. 1984, I was a second season interpreter, naturalist Larry, in case you don't know what an interpreter is, at Elk Island National Park, and I had been given the job to organize the National Park Centennial that was happening next year and events there. And I met Larry again at a workshop, a training session, where we gathered together these National Park Centennial planners from Western Canada, from National Historic Sites, National Parks, and we went to Radium Hot Springs and got our training, and lots of managers in there as well. And Larry was either volunteered or was voluntold to organize activities after the meeting. And I remember the first day, Larry said to us, "Wear good shoes." Oh, everyone's excited. Larry is legendary for his guided walks, linear meetings. And we think that's what we're going to do. And then Larry starts handing out these disposable plastic gloves and Ziploc bags and says, "You're going on a treasure hunt." Well, treasure hunt consisted of following bighorn sheeps and collecting their droppings while they're still steaming and writing on the plastic bag whether it's from a lamb, whether it's from a young of year, whether it's from a ewe, a ram, whether it's a full coil or part coil. And this was part of a citizen science program to monitor the health of the bighorn sheep, and specifically how susceptible they were to getting pneumonia, which was a big problem in those days with bighorn sheep. So after we proudly collected and handed in our baggies, we were given free passes to go into the Radium Hot Springs pools. And you can imagine lots of conversation, lots of laughter as we're recovering from this. And then the laughter started to die out, and the conversation died out, and the eyes got big. And then floating on the surface was this big human stool. And then we hear the laughter, maniacal laughter from the sidelines, and there's Larry holding up his O. Henry bar rack.
Were you there?
No.
You know, I thought that was going to be the end of it, and then I started thinking about it and saying, this was classic Halverson. It was creative, it was engaging, we involved a lot of different senses. I can tell you pretty much what the temperature of the inside of the sheep was from the dropping temperatures coming out. We got lots of information about the sheep and all their threats and their role in the ecosystem. And it was all relevant to what we were doing. And then at the end, we had reinforcement of the theme.
Have a chat, discuss what was happening, what was important in my life, what was happening in his life. It was fantastic. It was just a great sense of being able to chat with each other, and what a respectable man. At any rate, I kept joking because I thought, coming across good customer service people are really tough. And I knew he worked for the parks. I knew he worked for the parks, but I thought, what would it take to get him into a red shirt?
At any rate, I was not successful. Okay, enough of that. Certainly, I remember distinctly a story about Larry. I remember distinctly being in an IBC meeting, Invermere Business Committee meeting, just over here on Main Street. And on the agenda was, one of the topics was Larry Halverson was going to come in and present on what was going to be Wings Over the Rockies. And this was all brand new, so I was kind of interested. And he got your attention early in the game when he came in the door and started to, I'm not sure what the right word is for this, Larry, but I can just remember you sort of taking our international bird here, the raven, and cawing like this raven here right at the start of the meeting, just to get our attention. And I'll never forget that, you know, just absolutely never forget that. You had our attention, and after your presentation to the Committee of Downtown Business People, you had us. I mean, it was a no-brainer. It's you know, we're talking about environmental and the good things. Well, you were way back early times. You were on it to a T, and certainly we started with the Wings Over the Rockies. You got it going, and businesses tried to get involved wherever they could, and it was amazing. So you've been a true ambassador to this town, true ambassador. So at any rate, on behalf of the District of Invermere, I certainly bring thanks. Yeah, by the way, I forgot one thing. This isn't your first rodeo either. 1992, right? Governor General Awards? Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, like 1992, Governor General Award. So,
Wow.
pretty amazing, Larry. Pretty amazing. So on behalf of the District of Invermere, I want to give a hearty thank you to you. As I said earlier, you've been a true ambassador to this community, and I'm sure we'll continue on with that. And on behalf of Mayor, Council, Public Works, all of our administration and staff, thank you for what you do.
Those of us who have worked with Larry in any capacity know that he's a Pied Piper of engagement. And we used to refer to Larry's bird calls as cold calls. Now I'd like to call up Joyce Jack and her daughter Barbara to say a few words on behalf of the Jack family.
Thank you, Joyce.
Okay, good afternoon to everyone, and it's so wonderful to see so many people out. This has just been absolutely amazing, and to see just to see so many people that I remember, and you had to prod me a little as in terms of letting me know who you are. Barbara and I drove over yesterday from Salmon Arm, and it was so good to come back to the valley. You know, it's just really wonderful and a great place that we have lots of good family members of. And I'm certainly honored to be able to attend Larry and this wonderful, wonderful, prestigious award that you are receiving. Ian would be so proud of you, so proud. Let me see, I'm allowed 1 minute, I think it is.
Should have flashed.
Yeah, we can't all be in Ottawa, so it's really wonderful, I think, and I thank Invermere for, Invermere? Yeah, Invermere, right. It's down there. I thank people for, actually doing this in honor of Larry. So all the best to you, Larry. I'm going to pass this on to my daughter, who's so much better at speaking.
Thanks. My name is Barb Butler, and I'm the daughter of Ian and Joyce Jack, and sister to Ivan Jack. It's my honor this afternoon to say a few words in recognition of the significant impact that Larry has made in the lives of so many people, including me and my family. The majority of memories of growing up in Kootenay National Park, originally above the Radium Hot Springs pool, later on the farm in Edgewater, are intrinsically linked to the experiences and the contributions created by this incredible community of park naturalists and all Kootenay staff beginning in the 1960s. My dad, Ian Jack, was chief as his very first job at the university, and I really believe that his soul was completed when Larry was hired as his assistant for the next 26 years. Larry was a key blessing to the team of people who began and continued careers which left a lasting legacy in the hearts and minds of everyone who was fortunate enough to be enveloped in the interpretive mission of Kootenay Park. I actually can't remember any part of my formative years that didn't involve this wonderful man. As a child, he used to babysit me. He tells everybody this story. And he read me our favorite stories, so I brought them. This is Mother Westwind, Thurton W. Borges, 1947. And there was a whole series, but anything that I wanted to learn about the lives and personalities of wild animals. And then this one was given to me by my dad when I was 4, and that was my favorite. To this day, he jokes that I correct his diction as he writes. Laughter, joy, and hilarious practical jokes, there is no time to even get into this, became the mainstays of the years and the days at the office in Topeka. Magic really happened whenever this team was together in the coffee room, back and forth to their office spaces, out in the field, or events like the Great Green Toad Expedition. When a person is excellent at and absolutely loves what they do, it is said that they are in their element. Larry's God-given gifts are perfectly suited to the mission of inspiring everyone to value the environment of this beautiful and beloved Columbia Valley. I always remember the phrase, everyone is a naturalist, they just don't know it yet. They certainly do now, as evidenced by the amazing friends and colleagues here today to celebrate Larry's Lifetime Achievement Award. The distinguished speakers here today are most worthy of honoring Larry, his family, and his work. At first, I wasn't sure what I could share of value, and then I looked around what surrounds me in my home. Along with the memorabilia from my dad's life, the original wooden sign from the Kootenay viewpoint, my dad kept stuff like that.
You mean he stole stuff?
Yes.
Rescued.
So this is the sign. Oh, yeah. Fall 1976, Beautiful BC magazine. So there we go. So this hangs in my hallway, and beside it is this photo that I had framed, and I just wanted to share a little bit about what it says in the article. So it was an article about Kootenay National Park. So Larry's passion for explaining the local flora, fauna, and geography is highlighted. And the write-up says, so here's a picture of Larry and I, top corner. And so typical, this is Olive Lake, down here at the bottom. Larry's socks and shoes off, pants rolled up, in the water, so that he can show us all the things that he needed. So, but the write-up says 2 full-time and 6 seasonal naturalists in the park take visitors on hikes that explain and explore various aspects of the park. It's one of the best job descriptions of how to spell your life. Perhaps what I have to share of importance is that education was taught through stories, and the emulation of environmental values is what many of us in this room and elsewhere hold so dearly. Congratulations to you, Larry, and to your beautiful family. I love you all.
see how much next picture.
Okay.
See the video.
Do I have to do that too?
Project. Next up, I want to call up Deborah Griffith, a longtime colleague of Larry.
Oh my, what a crowd. This is awesome. It warms my heart looking out at all your lovely faces. And to know that Larry has deeply, deeply touched you all with his kindness, humor, knowledge, and thoughtfulness. We all agree that Larry winning this prestigious award is so appropriate and so well deserved. I was fortunate to work with Larry for 18 years. We laughed a lot, didn't we, Larry? I laughed a lot. Anyways, he was one of my key mentors in parks and inspired me in so many ways. Connecting people with nature, thinking about our time in parks bubbles up all the memories, kinds of memories, and here's one. Larry, John Pitcher, Marla Oliver and I went on one of our linear meetings to Wilmer Wetlands, and we bundled up. It was a really windy, cold spring day, and as we're walking along, we look over the hill and we see this blue fluttering on the edge of the hill. And as we got closer, we saw not one, not two, but about 10 or 12 mountain bluebirds. And oh my, I was so excited. I said to Larry, what? I've never seen that many together. Is that normal? And he said, Deb, when you go out, stuff happens. And that, my friends, buoyed my interest in working with Larry and all the communications team for so many years. I walks, road trips, canoe trips, speckled our work life and became not just meetings but magical education moments. Thank you, Barb. Larry and I worked a lot on lots of interesting projects in Parks Canada, and they have stretched our interests a bit further than parks might want it sometimes, actually. Larry brought Bill Swan and I to a meeting one day in 1996 with an interesting group of people from the Columbia Valley community. 17 people, a lot of big vision, a good portion of brownies, and humor. Thanks to Larry, we were off and running to create the first Wings Over the Rockies Bird Festival the next spring. We had 9 months. No, we didn't even have 9 months to pull that off. 10 days of festival and over 100 events. It was quite something to pull off. And now, 25 years later, because of Larry, the Wings Festivals inspired folks from our valley about the importance of wetlands, migrating birds and wildlife, and also, as Ross was saying, other festivals all over Canada. And over the years touched a lot of lives of people of all ages, far and wide. And Larry still volunteers to help mentor Wings Festival organizers, as Barb Thrasher knows. Anyways, and then there's a day that John Pitcher, Larry, and I saw a golden eagle and a bald eagle up close on the road trip coming from a meeting in Yoho. Oh, I could go on and on. There's more stories than I can tell you about. We've all had our blue bird moments with Larry, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
And whether at the office with his stories, jokes, kind gestures on a canoe trip, linear meetings, or stories over a cup of coffee, I so appreciate working with this patient, kind-hearted, generous, and fun-loving man who inspired so many people. We had put together a booklet, which Ross was mentioning, and you should all take a look at. And if you haven't got a story in there, I'm sure you have one to share, and I'm sure we could collect a few more for him to look at as he, between fishing trips. Anyways, thank you so much for coming. We sure appreciate all of you and all the things that you're doing. And a lot of them were inspired, I know, by Larry. Thank you.
The biggest challenge was trying to keep the number of presenters manageable, because we had about 100 people that offered stories of Larry. Most of them were true, I believe.
Not the next one.
George, I'll have you come up. George is another former colleague.
Where do I start? 50 years I've known this guy, and he's always looked the same. Wayne Stetsky told me it's a good thing our retinas age at the same time as the rest of us. Because I tell you, the history we've had, and I feel so honored to be here as the one seasonal who's allowed to say something. There's so many. The audience is filled with naturalists who worked with Larry. I started with Larry in 1972. 73 I came to Kootenay, and they let me stay. That was a surprising thing. So, there's a group of naturalists. Larry had this idea that if we cut oranges, or who else was that? Monty Slim. He said, we'll put oranges and you cut teeth and you put it in your mouth. So that's, every year we had a Kootenay National Park seasonal naturalist photograph. And they were just so crazy. Now, the other thing that Larry really was famous for was practical jokes. And when we went to town, to Calgary, he found these teeth. And he and I both bought a set of teeth. And we both wore them to see our dentist. And it really made an impact. So this is Larry's very first interpretive presentation. When they were still allowing bears to be fed from the vehicles. See, now does anyone recognize this crowd? Wow. This was the Kootenay National Park hockey team. And there are people like Larry, Byron Irons, Joe Nicholas, Dave Pick, this guy here, and Ian Jack. You know they were a cruel, cruel crowd. Because I couldn't skate. The rest of these guys could skate like crazy. But me, as soon as they found out that the puck would hit my skates, I'd be off on my rear end. They were aiming for my skates. Okay, I got one more story because my time is limited here. The time that Larry and I were hiking from France to Switzerland, we did a lot of world traveling. We bought a one-way ticket up the ski lift because we were hiking early spring and we didn't realize there was so much snow up on this ski lift. There was still, Larry and I we had to go bright and early because we were wearing these brand new knickers that we bought in Chamonix, France. And we had to leave the hostel before anyone else was awake because we were so embarrassed that we looked like tourists. But everyone knew we were tourists because we got to the ski hill, we bought a one-way ticket to the top, and then we started walking across, was the skiers were whizzing past us, and we didn't realize every time we thought we were walking top on the snow, it was, well packed. But no, each time we sank in. It made a big impact, so it sounded like that. But we made it finally across the ski hill. No one really whacked into us. And we hiked all the way into from France into Switzerland. We got to the highway, and Larry and I were hitchhiking to Montreux. And this guy pulled over and we said, Montreux, and we were taking turns trying to pronounce this. And finally he leaned over and said, do either of you speak English? It has been an absolute honor and a privilege to know Larry. And he has made such an impact on my life. Larry, I've got an achievement award. Come on up here. This is a Lifetime Achievement Award for French. 50 years. This is an authentic Great Columbia River tote t-shirt. This is not a knockoff. This is the real thing. And I can't say enough about my good friend.
We got to the warden's cabin, we were sitting around gabbing when George started looking through the piles of things he'd carried up 8 miles. He said, John, you dirty rat, you put a 20-pound boulder in my pack. I'm a naturalist, you know, and I ain't slack. I'm gonna have to take this damn thing back. Well, all of a sudden the floor started rocking. We looked outside, it was John knocking. He told us that he was trying to dig all the way to China. But we knew he'd never make it, because we put rocks in his pack. But the floor fell through, and we did too, and we didn't know just what to do, so we gave John a plastic cup, and we asked him to start digging up, and he dug through magma. Lava, rock, and snow, all the while mumbling something about interlocking spires and campfires and long-distance telephone wires to a Chaga girl who loved him more, he said, than his geography teacher's mistress. Go figure that one out. But we finally made it out of the hole, and the city lights were on next door. We were checking names off the attendance list when we found we were short one assistant naturalist. So we looked down the hole, and sure enough, there was Toad's helper. Well, before we got to the top, he tried to fill the holes and collapse the sides, and just when we thought we'd beat the worst, the ground started shaking and out he burst. Yes, sir. It was Halverson, singing Galveston, and grinning like he knew what was coming next. Well, we started back on down the hill, and Larry showed his acting skill. I'll spare the details of his plot, but the outcome, I'll spare you not. No, sir, we pushed Larry, and we pulled Larry, and in the end, we knew we were going to have to carry Larry. Well, 50 years have passed since then, and here I'm singing this song again. Do I have to say, or is it plainly seen? I don't know what half these verses mean. Well, there was Pam and Pat and John and Simon, Jim, Nick, George, Tom, and Larry climbing. We know we made it in, even with all the rocks in our pack, and even carrying Larry, I guess we made it back. But still in all, I do recall the trip to Flow Lake was a ball. 9 young souls made one great bunch. I'd love to see them all tomorrow for lunch. Yes, sir. I'd make a 50th anniversary cake. I'd say see you all tomorrow at noon.
one here.
With the hat?
Yeah. No. Jim Malchak and then me.
Careful when you press buttons, sometimes things happen.
Sorry.
I didn't have.
Makes a big difference when you turn on the microphone. It's like an interpretive test. Larry, now's your chance to do a rebuttal.
Raven call. Raven call.
Well, it's certainly is very nice to see so many friends and colleagues show up today and to be receiving this national recognition from the Canadian Museum of Nature. It's definitely quite an honor. And got to thinking, I'm not sure, they must have used some pretty fancy words in the nomination to convince the judges that it's worthy of such an award. But
Larry, good.
I was asked to say a few things about my past, my connection with nature. And I guess it all started back when I was quite a youngster, actually. My folks would remind me that I was always bent over looking at some little critter. And I actually learned the value of nature at a very young age. I collected a bunch of tadpoles, and then I brought them home, and I sold them to the neighborhood kids for 5 cents each. And then for another 5 cents, they got a bag of algae that they could feed their tadpoles. So you would have thought that maybe I would have become a businessman with that kind of behavior, but close as I came to that was modeling for their front covers of their magazine. The closest, I guess, or I should say, well, growing up, I was always sort of bringing nature home. And when I was about 12, I joined the Calgary Rock and Lapidary Club, and we made a field trip out to the Drumheller Badlands. And this is before I guess a lot of collection policies were in place. So I came home with 2 great big gunny sacks full of petrified wood and dinosaur bones. I was so excited to show my parents that I dumped both bags right onto their living room rug. Another time I brought a pigeon home that I rescued from a hot tarred roof. And it became a real buddy. It would fly onto my shoulder, and I'd walk to school with it. And then it would fly back up on the school roof, wait for me to come out, fly back onto my shoulder, walk home with it. So like I say, he was eating caragana seeds out of my mouth. But even my childhood art or drawings was always related back to nature.
Good.
And it only seemed natural that I would pursue a degree in biology. And while going to school, I got a job working the summers as a seasonal naturalist in Jasper. And my first boss, who's sitting in the audience tonight here, Dave Pick, it was just it was a time when I knew exactly what I wanted to do with my life, because it was the best job ever. I also had a job where I worked with Canadian Wildlife Service studying wolves. And you might say it was a bit of a poopy job, because I track wolves and collect their scats, and then basically bring them back to study wolf predation. And it was a bit of, I guess you might call it early forensic science.
Yeah.
Because what we did was we would take the hairs of known mammals and make an imprint of their hair on a piece of plastic with acetone or heat. And then with a Polaroid camera, that ages it right there, through a microscope and take pictures of these scales. And each scale, each species has its own particular pattern. So that was just simply a matter of matching the hair from the scats to the catalog of photos we made, and we knew exactly what the wolf ate. There was I guess a time, those were times also of wearing masks, except it wasn't COVID, it was because of a Echinococcus tapeworm that we had to be careful of. And then in 1972, I was offered the best job in the world as a full-time naturalist. And Kootenay National Park, and I couldn't believe my good fortune of getting to work in this incredible landscape. And a place, you know, where visitors from all over the world come to see.
Oh.
And then, to top it off, I was able to work with one of the best managers in the National Park system, Ian Jack. He was a type of guy that just created a really good working atmosphere, and often let me do the driving. It was after my first summer when I looked out over the Columbia Valley and I said, you know, I think I'm going to spend the rest of my life. And I certainly have been fortunate enough to be able to do that. And you know, I can't think of a day that I didn't wake up and look forward to going to work. Yeah, it's just, and it wasn't beside, you know, it wasn't necessarily just the incredible landscapes and working for a good organization that had great values and principles, but it was really the people is what made the best job. People I worked with. You know, the high energy Kootenay staff. I'm sure you recognize a lot of them. Many of you are sitting in before me here. And of course, many have become just lifelong friends. Then there's the amazing Valley teachers. And again, some are sitting in this audience. I see Roanna and Linda and And we also have the tremendous fortune, I think, of working in a community that's just so very, very supportive of everything. And where this all came together, I think, was with the Wings Over the Rockies Bird Festival. When a group of Valley residents hatched this idea of an annual celebration around birds in the wetlands. You add in the hundreds of volunteers, who, as Ross mentioned, we affectionately called the wing nuts. Plus a very supportive business community. And you have what I think Robert Basin so nicely said, what a good idea. Wings Over the Rockies Bird Festival conjures up an image of all that's important about Canada, spectacular scenery, abundant nature, and a warm human spirit of getting together in a worthy cause. You know, I really love nature, and I love people too. So as the saying goes, you know, when you enjoy your job, you never work a day in your life. And when I was thinking back, you know, over my career, I realized that all I did was simply look for ways that would excite people about our natural world. And then provide them with an enjoyable experience so that if the environment, our natural environment, ever became threatened or harmed, that they would stand up for nature. So I want to thank you all for being here this afternoon and for having this wonderful celebration for me. I'd like to say a special thank you for Barb Thrasher and Deb Griffiths and Ross McDonald for putting in the effort to make this so, and also for Kaz and the pine logs here and the supporters that also helped out. I can tell you that I'm certainly blessed. Thank you very much.